Welcome back to Sunday Ain't Enough. We're here again for episode 4. We didn't get canceled yet. We want to introduce you to our special guest for today, and that is Pastor John Brim. I was gonna say your middle name, but I don't know it.
You don't
Wesley.
know it? Oh,
No.
wow.
That's your Twitter.
You just gonna put it out there?
I'm
it's
just
his whole
saying.
Twitter.
You said it's what?
I'm scared to say it now.
Man,
No,
my
run
whole
that back, run
government. Go ahead. You can say it again. Go ahead.
Put the at in front of it, and then that'll give like. Nope,
Still
she's
bad.
done.
It's still
Oh
bad.
man, it's Wesley, y'all.
Wesley. That's not a bad middle name.
No.
Mine is Jeshua. Yeah.
All right, they went with like the Hebrew.
Yeah.
Okay. All right.
What's your middle name?
Michelle.
Oh.
And mine is Dwight.
Oh, that's your dad's name, right?
Bow bow.
Hey, okay. Shout out to Dwight. All right, so we just want to say happy Thanksgiving because Thanksgiving just passed. So, happy Thanksgiving.
Happy Thanksgiving.
Happy Thanksgiving.
Before we jump into, our dialogue today, we're all coming off of Thanksgiving. So I want to know, what's y'all's favorite part of Thanksgiving? What's your favorite dish? What's up? Is the turkey the main dish, or is that just by American culture and yours is really the macaroni? I mean, what we got?
I don't even like turkey, to be honest with y'all. Like the taste, the texture, sometimes it's dry. Uh-huh. I'm not a fan of turkey.
Yeah. Y'all got the fried turkey?
I've had it before.
Still not with it.
But you know what? The part of the turkey that I usually eat is before dinner actually starts. It's the neck, because when
Yeah, throw up.
when you cook it, it's the part of the turkey that's like submerged in the juice and all the all the seasonings
Okay,
and
well,
my gosh.
You're giving Pastor John a fit. So what is your favorite dish?
Man, it's not the turkey neck.
Please, no.
That's a hard one. I like all the sides. The greens and the macaroni and cheese, things like that. So I like sides. I'm a big
Shirley
sides
Caesar.
person. Yeah, right. So
I
that's me.
think the closest thing on earth that we have to heaven is the part of your plate where the macaroni and cheese and the candy yams touch.
Oh, he's right.
That
agree.
little portion where it's like both of those flavor combinations. That's what I dream about all last week leading up to Thanksgiving.
Wow.
I can't wait for that moment.
You got one there. You're actually right. And I'm really hungry right now. So can we stop?
Move on.
Balls right there.
Stop.
Well, hopefully y'all enjoyed your dinner with your family, friends, loved ones.
I guess that part is good too, seeing
Right.
your
I
family.
mean, that's the second,
Right.
Close second. or
But
close
even
first.
with that, so do y'all just pull up and get a plate? Is that your contribution? Is jokes and smiles, or are y'all really
Do you have a
bringing?
dish?
Yeah, are y'all
Right.
really bringing something?
I don't really cook, so I'll bring like a cake or some drinks.
Okay.
Okay.
That's me.
Drinks and cups. That's nice.
I have gotten to the stage where now I do help with the actual meal. I mean, I'll get up, not consistently every year, but I'll get up with my mom sometimes and help, season the turkey, because that's got to get in the oven early in the morning. And then I'll help with some sides. I think this year I'm on, the yams. We're gonna try a new cornbread dressing recipe that we recently, oh my God, it was so good. So I think that's gonna be my contribution. I might dabble a little bit in bacon. We'll see. I'm not trying to, overextend.
Okay.
All right.
No, my contributions are limited. I'm usually on the front end of things that need to be adjusted in the house.
Okay.
We're starting to get ready because right after Thanksgiving is Christmas, and so we're starting to prep that. But my cooking contributions are very limited. So shout out to my wife because the burden of responsibility is on her for Thanksgiving.
Okay. Yeah, and I don't really. If it's a Friendsgiving, I'm a cook something. But otherwise, I respect all the vets in the game, and I allow them to bring us, to bring us through the finish line. Yeah.
Gotcha.
Well, that's good. But yeah, side note, we're thankful for y'all for watching, tuning in with us, listening to our conversations. So we're going to move right along to our topic for today. And it's a great topic. Actually, it was inspired by Pastor John himself.
Oh, wow.
Just chilling in the office one day. brought it to my mind. So we're going to talk about it. And that's, how do you shape a ministry, basically, and the meaning of shaping a ministry. So we kind of want to get your take on shaping a ministry, what it means, what it takes.
Like right now?
Like
just
right
now?
That's why we called you.
I mean, that's what you do.
I think in the spirit of that conversation, for me, we were really focusing on shaping ministry for different demographics, and different, whether that's age, gender, where you live, and I think with all the analytics we have now, and with all the data that has been represented, and just with the shift in culture in general, it's really, really important to try to not just be so dogmatic in what you believe that you don't take time to build a ministry that people will be attracted to. You don't want to be attractional, but you want to at least be a magnet for people. So that means not necessarily building boxes and telling people to get in it, but asking people what type of boxes they want to have so that they can get in the box. That would be really, when I'm talking about shaping ministry, what it really boils down to is really connecting with people so that you can have something for them versus telling them, look, if you want to be a part of this, you need to fit in one of these boxes.
So like here at the Mount, with what you have going on, you're saying you're not just building those boxes. One, how do you go about finding out what people are talking about and what they want to see built, and what have you done to kind of carry those things out?
I gotcha. So, one of the things we did early on in the pandemic was we pushed out a survey, and we asked people what they wanted. Because sometimes I think if you're not careful, I know what you need and I know what you want, versus asking people just what would you like to hear about. I know Bishop also did a survey where it was like, what are the types of sermons? Or what are the different life issues that you're dealing with? Okay. And so what we've tried to do is then look at who's answering and responding and see what their group is. What, is it an age group? Is it a demographic as far as a gender or whatever? And then we try to make sure that we're taking that information to build boxes versus just saying, here are the boxes, so you need to get in one.
So with that being said, we want to talk about Generation Y and Z and, kind of what they want from a ministry. Since we are Generation Y, you're Generation Y, I'm a millennial.
Yeah, if that's the millennial one.
Yeah, I was definitely
I forget all the...
Right.
Throw those X's up.
So just getting into what we want in a ministry, and I think the biggest thing for me as a millennial is I want something that's spontaneous, not routine all the time. I don't want to, and here's the thing. When I went to church as a youngin', I didn't like going to church because it was the same thing. Sunday school, going to church for 5 hours, boom, 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 this and that. I'm serious. And, and that got kind of boring.
Mundane, yeah.
And I just didn't want to engage in it anymore. So when I left, I didn't really go to church, honestly. So, yeah, that's kind of what I was looking for, something that was a little spontaneous.
Yeah, I mean, I can definitely agree. Now, for me, childhood church was a little different because, you guys watching at the 9 o'clock moment know my dad. So this is who he's been all my life. He is a random, let's do this time. Let's do this time. So church for us was always fun. It was enjoyable. We loved coming to summer camp because we would have, it was educational in part, but then in the afternoon we could play Nintendo where I was doing Super Mario Brothers or whatever, or we'd be on a field trip to Busch Gardens or whatever, everything, even as far as service was fun. We would have great youth church, children's church, or whatever you want to call it. So church was never, as growing up, it was never, for me, it wasn't boring, but I will say that when I left for school, Lord forgive me, I did not attend church regularly. I was away from home, and I did visit a couple churches, but it was... This is a no judgment zone.
Exactly.
This is a no judgment zone.
Here.
Oh, I didn't get that briefing. I'm sorry.
We forgot to give you the little team pep talk. It's all right.
And I did visit churches. A lot of churches like we would do. They'll have college kids Sunday, but then I get there and you're not really doing anything for college kids. Church is church as normal. And so. The idea or the concept was good, but the execution may have been lacking a little bit. And so I it wasn't something that said, dang, I got to go back. And so I did kind of fall off. And I don't even remember if we were streaming heavily at that time, the Mount. But yeah, I did kind of fall off until I got back home. The Lord knew I needed to come back home.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
Praise God for returns. Can I ask a question on that? All right, so I do have a question, though. So, for the first two, I guess, and then come to you as well, but when you went off to college, both of you have said so far you disconnected. Mm-hmm. Have y'all seen that as a trend across Gen Y? Because to me, that's one of the things that we are really trying to be intentional about going into 2022 is creating a pipeline between the 18 to 24-year-old so that when you leave, you're at least connected to your church so that you don't leave and just go, I ain't trying to do this church thing at all, because you get out there and you can't find options, or either there was really no intentional pipeline built prior for you when you left to go to college.
I'll go ahead and answer first. I do think it was definitely a trend because the kids I went to the church with stopped going to church as well, didn't try to find a church home because I think we realized the church didn't really pour into us like we felt they should have. And I feel like if they did intentionally, like you're saying, pour into us, we would have been a little more equipped to, cultivate a relationship on our own. And that didn't happen either. So it's kind of, I think it was a trend, but I don't want to blame the church, but it was definitely a trend.
I mean, I would definitely agree. I have friends that I went to college with, whether we went to the same college or they were at different colleges. Same thing, we all kind of fizzled out of regularly attending somebody's service. Now, I do have a friend, she was my roommate, and she would go to service regularly. I've had friends that joined the choir and got involved that way. And so I'm trying to think, what the connection, what the difference was maybe for them, like why because they were away from home. But I don't know if it was they already had relationships in that church that they were able to, because now even sitting here thinking about it, their church was, it's a part of a larger denomination. So they would do convocations and things like that. So I think she may have already had established relationships. So she already kind of had a connection with at least one or two people in the church. And that makes the transition a little easier, because at least now I have somebody that I can go to service with and maybe, okay, let's join this ministry together. So I think that was probably what kind of helped secure or solidify her desire to regularly attend.
That's good.
And I say, one, that there's two main focal points I have. One is where we going to church just because our parents went, and so you're under my house, my rules, you're going. There's no real relationship there, so you're out on your own. You do what you want to do, and you figure it out in your own time. So I think that upbringing of, yes, you want to push your child to go to church, but even give them the option, hey, I'm going to church today. You do what you choose to do. And start grooming somebody who's about to leave your house to leave. And at that same point, can we all agree that the Mount does church a little differently? Yes. I'm going to put some of that on the Mount. Wherever you go after is going to be a lot different than this. And if the church isn't preparing you to go to visit a church in another area, you're not going to know how to integrate yourself or to say, hey, I know this is missing this portion. Maybe I can connect slightly back through, video or a call or something to get what I usually get. But in this community, I still might need to know these certain people at this church. So to try to be able to bridge that gap, and I put it on the Mount to say, not preparing people to leave.
That's good. I got to take that note down that we need to come up with something to prepare people to leave here and still stay connected to church, and also prepare them for the fact that everywhere is not the Mount. Mm-hmm. That's good. And then I think, like I was already saying, just that bridge until you connect with the church in your local area, And maybe that's us trying to help people connect
Yeah.
And I mean something that I did too. I really couldn't find a church that I enjoyed going to, but there were smaller like Bible study groups. Right. So I would go to that, and then maybe somebody, oh, we're gonna try this spot out, and then it might not work, but at least now me and all my friends could be like, man, that church was not hitting the day. And then we go on, and we're still trying to build a connection. I think God honors that your heart is seeking them out, and then you'll be rewarded in due time with what you need and be important, or even fighting through that.
I mean, I think the pandemic has also kind of helped us start working toward being able to bridge that gap, because we've now become so heavily dependent upon streaming technology, which, you know, as a college student, no matter where I am in the country, in the world, I mean, even if I just attend KLLG or, you know, other streaming ministry moments that we have, that still allows me to pipe back into my church, get a nice little, you know, boost of energy, refreshing, whatever it is that I may need to help me until I can get to a place where I'm, you know, regularly attending services or some kind of Bible study group or whatever the situation may be. So I think the pandemic has definitely helped us start the process of being able to bridge that gap for that 18 to 24-ish age group.
And I do think some ministries, they probably don't try to do things like we're saying, like the small groups, because either they don't see the value in it or they're scared to do it.
Or lack of resources.
Lack of resources. They're scared to be different. Lack of resources, I think I can argue that, because everyone has a phone.
Let's debate. But I mean the resources to even host it, because it takes more than just putting up a Zoom link to host it. You need somebody to come up with the content, somebody that you can trust to come up with the content, because if I'm the pastor, I'm not trying to be on every small group Zoom to make sure what you're saying is appropriate and what we, you know, believe here at the church. So I need the volunteers and or staff, consistent people that's going to show up.
That's true, but you have to start first.
Absolutely.
You got to at least start to see if you can even take it further. Sometimes we got to take some risks. We got to be different, you know, not traditional as far as other ministries go. So that's my argument with that. If you want to argue again, I might not have another point. So.
But even with that, though, like, I've visited churches where their whole thing was, hey, welcome here and join this small group. And that's the whole like mission of that version of church, and trying to figure out ways to pull and pluck what slightly works for them and gear it towards, like you were saying, use those tactics, but then also make the box for the people as they want it and choose it. And so I think having that mindset along with learning from others is really valuable.
Definitely. So can we agree that Generation Y and Z don't want to be a part of a traditional ministry?
I totally disagree with that.
Yeah, I'm gonna disagree but agree. And what I mean by that, and you know, I'm in the wedding planning process, so I kind of feel the same about that as I do about church. And what I mean by that is there are aspects of church or ministry that I like to be contemporary, modern, up to date. Same thing with my wedding. I don't want it to look like a wedding from the 60s. However, there are traditions, Are
you jumping a broom?
I am not jumping a broom.
Okay, all right, okay. That was great.
But, you know, there are sacred ceremonies and things like that, you know, that I believe are considered traditional, but are important to me. You know, I love monthly doing communion. I do communion on my own outside of church, because I don't have to be physically in the building, or it doesn't have to be a group that I do it with. But those are the kinds of traditional things that I feel are important to my faith walk. But I agree. Do I have to have a preacher, no offense to anyone that this is their case, that we're singing a hymn every Sunday, or the preacher sweating and spitting and everything else, you know, through his message. I don't need that. Right. We can just have a conversation. He can be just teaching, lecturing, you know, something that's just going to help me through. So that may not be considered the traditional way, but I think that there are customs that follow our faith that I would incorporate into my faith.
I'm maybe I'm different. Okay, so let's do this real quick. Help me out because I don't remember. What is Gen Y?
It said
Millennials.
the age group that I just looked up.
It's all millennials. It's same age group, right?
35-ish to like 25 or something like that.
But then they start calling us
Millennials.
millennials.
So that's like
25 to 40 is Gen Y.
25 to 40.
Sam, are you Gen Y? You're Gen Z.
I'm 27.
Oh,
Why are you
my
trying
bad.
to do that to me?
I'm sorry, Sam. I really did. It was a genuine question.
The earliest someone would have been born would have been 81, right? All right. So I was born in 78.
But you just missed the cut.
So I just missed the cut, right? So here's where I'm going with this. There are a lot of Gen Yers that are just like me.
Yeah.
Okay? Because they're only a few years removed, right? And they've got, a wife, a couple of kids, a truck, a car, a dog, a cat, picket fence, house, careers. And they are living the exact same lifestyle I'm living. And at this point in time, they're looking for something that fits their family, not just an individual. Right. Most times when you think of millennials, you think of the single person who's just getting out of college, and that's not true. And so I think more times than not, if ministry is geared towards a family, you've already attracted most Gen Yers, not all, but a good majority of them. Right? Now they're the late bloomer pieces where it's like, oh well, I'm not married yet, but I want to be married. You got all of that going on too, right? Because that's still that time period where you're finding yourself. But at the end of the day, if you were to really shape ministry towards family, you're really going to capture most Gen Y. I think for me, when we say traditional, non-traditional, you get into, well, what's traditional? Was non-traditional. I think the approach can be non-traditional, but you can still offer traditional things. And I think most Gen Yers, if they got a family, they're looking for a good children's ministry. They're looking for a good, marriage ministry. They're looking for the same things that someone that's in Gen X is looking for. And I think sometimes we put so much value on generations that we forget the fact that life is still life. Life didn't change because my age changed. So it's more circumstantial to where you are in life than how old you are. Because if you're 19 and you're married, you're thinking about things that married folk think about, regardless of your age. Yeah. Does that make sense to everybody?
Yeah,
that makes a lot of sense.
So I kind of disagree with they're looking for something that's non-traditional. I don't know if it's that as much as they're looking for something that's relevant.
Definitely important. But I do like how you say if you gear it towards family, because, you're basically touching every demographic. If you gear it towards a family, there's a woman, there's a man, there's a son, there's a daughter, and I think that's really good. I think that's very good.
But that's just my thought. Again, I'm not saying it's right. That's just my
It's a good
opinion.
thought.
Yeah.
So let's talk about, because you said something about the approach can be non-traditional, but you still offer traditional things. So could the problem in some ministries be they're approaching it traditionally? So when we say we're approaching it, ministry, in a traditional sense, what are we saying?
Well, I think that something that we talk about a lot is transparency. And I think in a traditional sense, people put up that wall, that facade, and they're trying to just show you what you think you need to see instead of being really transparent. And I think that's where the relevancy and the non-traditional side of things really shines a little brighter, is when somebody's being super transparent. The question I have is, how realistic is transparency? Because of how people treat other people. Okay, you are a pastor and you struggle with this. Can you even say that? Because now, well, who are you to tell me because you ain't in the position? Or even if we're talking about a relationship, people be like, oh yeah, the woman says, you should open up to me. And then you tell her you're afraid of something. Now you're a coward. How can you really be transparent, but also when people don't really give you the space to be transparent as a larger society?
That's good. I do think with the transparency, it just has to be consistent. Like if you have admitted you're dealing with something, but you never talk about it again, I don't think there's consistency, and maybe a congregation or a small group will just continue to judge you behind their head because you're not even talking about how you're doing with it, what the steps you're taking to be better at whatever it is. So I think the consistency piece with the transparency will, over time, be better, and you might not get judged as much. That's my take on it.
I think approach for me, Bishop is the prime example of someone who has, over time, adapted to the times we're in, right? So a whosoever in 2010 looks a lot different from a whosoever in 2021, right? So how we engage someone in 2021 is totally different than Bishop in 2010, right? That's down to the delivery of the sermon. Like, listen to how it's scored now with Ken playing the entire time versus, shout cue on the way and the Hammond fires up. Or the approach and it's not that you can dress to attract someone as much as you dress to make someone comfortable, right? I don't want you to feel like you got to show up here, suited and booted every time you come to church. I don't want you to feel like the only way we're going to receive you is if you talk this way, walk this way, drive this, live here. So I think approach is in how you put yourself out there for people to be able to approach you. It's not so much approach in, oh, yeah, we're going to change all this stuff up, but it's I'm going to put myself out in a way so I become approachable. And I think our ministry, one thing I give the Mount over a lot of churches is the Mount is an approachable ministry. People, of course, it's benevolent and all that, but I think just in general, people feel like when they see you in Kroger or something, they really can't just walk up to you and talk to you because they feel like this is an approachable ministry. That's not every church. A lot of churches are cold and callous, and I think being approachable is an approach. And that is something that started from the head. Bishop is that guy. Everybody has his number for whatever that means. Right. Thank you. But that is something that has flowed from him down. And I think that is a part of the approach is we're not so heavenly bound that we're no earthly good. Right.
Well, and I know our notes, it references Jesus being spontaneous, but even in this approachable, was Jesus not approachable? So to me, and again, no shade to anybody that is not, because everybody, you got your own reasons, right? Yeah. But there are stories of the woman reaching out, approaching Jesus for her healing, for, she needed to touch him, the hem of his robe. So, and there are countless stories of Jesus being approachable. Read through the Bible. You can find that. So if we are called to be Christians and be more Christ-like, shouldn't that be the norm?
That's good. Oh, yeah. That's good. And he was non-traditionally approachable because the woman that touched him, one, she's bleeding some kind of way, right? And two, she's a woman in the midst of a whole circle of men. Right. So she's not supposed to do it. And she's never supposed to touch a teacher, right? And she does and he doesn't go, how dare you touch me, right? So non-traditional ministry and approachable. And his approach was to teach the people, this is what I'm about. So I get what y'all have done in the past. So he was very revolutionary in the fact that he was like, no, this is the way y'all have done ministry in the past, but let me show you another way. And that's why the multitudes followed him, because he was different. So, different is divine.
And not only was he different or peculiar, he calls us to be different and peculiar. That's what he calls us in the Bible. Just wanted to add that little tidbit in. Told you that yesterday. But as far as even the story about how the lame man came through the ceiling.
I was about to say.
Can you imagine
right.
A pastor nowadays who isn't approachable, how they would have reacted to that?
Well, I don't even know if it's always the pastor, the teacher. So them having to take those measures, that's more so we're looking at security. It's not to say, hey, let anybody do whatever they want. But now when you see somebody searching so hard and seeking out, you have to create some sort of space. So maybe the bishop's phone number isn't the first thing you see on the marquee when you're driving up, so that way you have access. But at some sort of way, you can get there if you put forth the effort. And I think that's the difference. You don't have to like clear a path like, oh, you got an issue? Let me give you Bishop's phone number real quick. You call him right now.
And I also think non-traditional is also kind of being a role model for the kingdom. So being healthy, being happy, being wealthy, if you know what I'm saying, because some ministries is not like that with the leaders in their church, because dealing with sickness, disease, not saying that's a bad thing, but we have to know we're healed, of course, and also being broke. Like, I don't want to go to a church if I know
Lord Jesus, I feel like we got to put out a disclaimer.
someone's broke. Because I want to be wealthy too, especially as a Generation Z. Like, they want to be wealthy.
I mean, a good example of that for me is I'm not going to a hairdresser who hair is not right.
It's mad bald barbers though.
Yeah,
But
well,
what is it beard
maybe they
You
bald.
go to 'em.
Maybe right. Maybe they bald their hair, but you know, if your hair's not right, I can't let you touch mine because I don't know. I need to see the fruit.
There has to be some attraction there. It still has to be attractive. You know, like you don't get an ugly car. It has to be attractive. You don't date an ugly man or woman. You had to be attracted to it, if you know what I'm saying. So I think that's another big point. You said we got to put out a disclaimer.
Yeah, because listen, I
Money in
just,
church.
if you happen to be a sick pastor or a broke pastor at this time, that is no shade. Like, no.
Can we talk about our bishop though?
Go for it.
How he has beat cancer? You know what I'm saying? I mean, I don't know if I'm allowed to really talk about that.
I mean,
But-
it's not. It's public knowledge.
Okay. I mean, but that's huge.
Yeah.
And it's all based off of faith, if you know what I mean. So that's attractive.
It is, and I get exactly what you're saying. You want somebody that looks
Prosperous.
prosperous, or at least is living a good Christian life, where it's like, of course we know life happens, but I definitely want my leader to look like the faith I want to have.
Right.
Yeah, I get that.
I mean,
get
and
that.
even that for me, and this is kind of, I think, maybe what Sam was even talking about when he was suggesting your health and things like that. So, yes, Bishop did beat cancer, but even, as you get older and as an African American, there are other things that you're just at higher risk for, whether that's your high cholesterol or, diabetes. And so, again, as the leader, because he's aware that these are potentials, he's made some changes in his eating habits. Now, I mean, is he perfect? No.
Get him some bacon and some ham.
He gonna
somewhere.
get, okay. But even still, he might not eat the whole thing of ham now. But, right, he's trying to, again, make those changes. One, because I'm sure that's a personal choice. But like you said, Sam, I mean, if he's got to be doing the work of God, the work for the kingdom, he has to be capable of doing that. And that's what do we always say? Faith without works is dead. You can believe you healed, but if you're not doing your part, then...
And I even think that when you talked about the fruits, they don't have to all be the same or all be there for who you're seeking out in a leader. You might be struggling a lot with loving others. And so while, yes, they may pull up and they need the pastor needs somebody to pick them up from church because their car doesn't work, but they're showing a life full of love. Mm-hmm. That is what you're pulling from and drawing from. And it's like, okay, I can follow that. And as they continue to pour out that love, more fruits will come of that. They'll get new partners who will be like, you know what? I see the love you're showing, and I want to show you love monetarily. And now they can start to grow in other areas just as they're pouring out in other spots.
Yeah, I think, shout out to Dr. Kimberly. She had a post on Twitter. She put out a tweet that I really liked, because I think the one thing that I think most people look for, but they don't realize it, is a leader that's self-aware. Because just because you don't have a lot of money now, if I hear that that's something you recognize, and it's something I can watch your journey as you step it out, I'm okay with that. It goes back to that transparency piece y'all talked about. I love when leaders are transparent because now I can see that you're self-aware and I can follow that journey and be inspired by your changes and your growth and your maturity in an area because I'm watching you walk out your faith, right? I think what really bothers me is when people are not, if you're not transparent, it's hard for me to understand sometimes what you're teaching me just based on, it's just information. I don't see lifestyle with it. And I think that's what you're kind of, it's a lifestyle thing. Like, does your lifestyle match up to the God that, because you're telling me serve this God, but everything about your life is like, if that's what you got, I don't know if I want that. You know what I mean? But I do have a question for you guys, though, because you all are the Gen Y people. Shout out Gen X, man. We in here. We in the building.
You're
but
barely Gen X.
Hey, listen, but I am, right?
He's there, though. He's there.
Right, exactly.
Chip.
You know what I'm saying? Like rapper hands. There it is. Right, So here's my thing. Is there ever a time, though, for y'all as Gen Y where you going somewhere and you just were like, this is too much? They're trying to, they're almost at some point pandering to Gen Y. The gospel rap artist that came in that was trash, but they thought they were appealing to you guys because he dressed like you, but his lyrics and his beats were just not, they were not it, or they go really hard in an area to try to appeal to you and create something that you never asked for. But they're like, but we gave y'all this. Like, have you ever felt that way, or is that just something maybe I don't know, I made it up in my head,
Yeah, I've been to a church where I felt that way, and it was mostly because I just think people were just doing too much.
So
they were trying too hard.
So you feel like they weren't being authentically themselves?
Right. It's like they knew millennials were here, so we're gonna do this. we're gonna wear some Gucci or it's just anything to try to get us. But I mean, we don't care about that, to be honest with you. So don't try too hard. If you try too hard, I mean, here we go again. Look at Jesus. It was effortless for him.
Well, I think in that, though, I think people should try hard, but what they're doing is excluding the people they want to connect with. So, yes, put forth all that effort that you're doing, but before you step out there, say, hey, Sam, I want to accomplish this. Help me. But what they're doing is saying, all right, guys, here's what we need to do to talk to Sam. So I think they should still use that same effort, take the same amount of time, whatever money they're pouring in, but instead of talking to the same people they've been talking to the last 10 years, talk to you. Yeah. And then it'll work out great.
But still remain yourself.
Yeah.
Right, because then you can even tell them, hey, when you say that, it sounds different than when I say that. So you don't need to say it. Acknowledge that you know what it means, and then there's a connection there. Because you don't have to be me for me to understand you.
Yeah, so it takes some learning and some research. It's kind of what you're saying. Like, if we want to sell to this person, we need to know what this person likes, what they like to see, packaging, colors. Pastor John talks about stuff like this all the time. That's what he does. But yeah, just when I said it was effortless for Jesus, I meant it was effortless because he had a source, which is God, of course, and he stayed true to himself. So that's what I mean by it should be effortless. If you're going to be yourself, it's going to work, if you know what I'm saying. And then your piece with talking to that age group to make sure, will this work, before putting the package out there. So that's good.
Well, Bishop's got an advantage, too, because he's got 2 Gen Y kids.
LJ is, yeah. He's Gen Y.
And I think that's another thing that I think I admire about Bishop is his willingness to listen to, whether it was Dr. Kimberly or Pastor LJ or anyone else. Bishop is a learner. I promise, that's the one thing that working here has really showed me is he's a learner. And I think in any church, the only way you're going to be able to get over that hurdle of those generational gaps is to have a leader that's willing to learn.
Yeah. I mean, because honestly, none of us are Jesus, so we can't do it by ourselves. Can't do it. So to Darian's point, you're going to have to surround yourself with people, and you shouldn't surround yourself with I shouldn't surround myself with a bunch of Kimberlys. Right. Because I don't need somebody that can do what I do. I need somebody that can do what I can't do. And that's how we successfully are able to reach the different, whether it's generations or whatever the demographic is. And that, to me, is to Darian's point. You know, if I'm just sitting here having the conversation myself or with a group of Kimberlys, but we're trying to reach young men, I've never been a man, okay? I don't know how to reach, you know, at their core. I don't understand all of what they experience. I don't know what it is to be an African-American man in America. I know what I see, and I know from my perspective as an African-American woman, but I truly can't help them through that. So if that's who I'm trying to reach, I need to find me an African-American man who can go out there and reach them.
Mm-hmm. And I think that speaks to being genuine, because if you have a genuine heart for people, right, you're gonna do what you need to do. Surround yourself with the people that can help you reach that demographic, and of course, do your research. And that's definitely something I think Pastor John does. Like, he has a genuine heart for you. So yeah, he does his research, and he's going to be he's formulating things that need to go down. So that's the part of being genuine.
But to that point, thank you. That's cool. I appreciate it. But there are times where, honestly, and this is something I've just taken lead from our leaders on, is you're just not going to know. And to Darian's point, there are just some things that you have to go to some other people and surround yourself and say, hey, help me, your mom, help me understand.
Help me understand.
Help me understand. You just don't get it. I think George Floyd last year was one of those times where, depending on where you were generationally, that was one of those things where you really had to try to understand from another person's lens. I came up where, if you're raised by a baby boomer, they were raised in a nonviolent peaceful kind of thing. You know, if you came up in my generation, you were a little bit more angry, a little bit more vocal. You know, I'm in the Public Enemy, NWA. You know, I'm just thinking through the lens of culture, right? So hip-hop, if you look at hip-hop and how it changes over time, you see how the generations change over time. So now we get to a George Floyd situation where it's like, look.
We want all the smoke.
All of it. All of it. You know, and it's like, whoa. Now, how do you as a ministry address that? Do you embrace what's happening? Do you, try to come back and denounce what's happening? Because if silence gives the consent, then you not saying anything condones it. But if you don't say anything, then you're not relevant. So how do you now approach that? You have to surround yourself with people that are thinking differently from you in those moments, especially when it comes to ministry. You cannot allow yourself to just go and compartmentalize based off of your experience and what you know. That is probably one of the hardest parts about ministry, is when what's happening outside of the church socially needs to now affect what's happening inside. Because now it's like, because now you get into, what the Bible says, well, we're in this world, but we're not of this world. And it's like, but is that what that really means? Or should ministry be relevant to what's happening?
I mean, I definitely think it should be relevant to what's happening, because to me, ministry is about helping me navigate life. And so I don't think that they should be mutually exclusive. So if outside of the four walls of this church or out in the community it's utter chaos, well, what's being told or taught to me inside the church should help me navigate through this. Help me, or even if you don't know as a pastor, for example, with the George Floyd situation, you don't know what to say to your people. Even providing just an open forum for whether it's the men to come and just get everything off their chest, because together, maybe in that moment, something will spark that'll give us an idea of how we can move forward, or it'll just give me the opportunity to just vent, which venting a lot of times saves lives. I mean, seriously, just holding it in I think it can make you sick.
Absolutely.
I'm not a doctor, but I think. So,
You're not?
I'm not, excuse me.
Doctor.
Excuse me, I'm not a medical doctor, medically trained, no. But yeah, just finding a way to provide some sort of relief, some sort of avenue to help deal with what's going on outside in the world.
Yeah, there has to be a safe space.
Safe space.
You got to be able to ask questions, because how are you going to learn if you can't ask questions?
I think that even, Sam, that's a part of being approachable, because some people don't like to be asked questions. One, because they might not know the answer, but two, because some people just don't like being questioned. Like, what I said is what I said, and don't ask me anything further. And so if that's even your approach, it's not the approach that I prefer. So
well, that's part of one, people not. That's a competency thing. I think a lot of it is like, I know this only to this extent, and it's worked up to this point. So it's like, don't ask no questions, because
That's all I got.
this is this is it right here. But then also, I think to your point about the different generations is, I don't even think it's necessarily all the smoke. I don't think this generation is necessarily angry, but they've grown up in a way more conversational space. So now it's always well, why? It's never just that's the way it, and so not being able to do that in this day and age is going to hinder you from attracting more people, because now I need to know. I know about everything else. Google tells me 90% of the rest of the information. You got to let me know what's up.
or at least tell me I don't know.
I'm okay with that.
I
Just
am
tell me
too,
you don't
because
know.
I don't know everything. I shouldn't. It's not fair for me to expect you to know everything. But don't try and make up some bogus answer and using all these big words that don't help me.
I'm gonna
Just
go look
tell
'em
me.
up.
But that's
I
what
don't
I
know.
asked you earlier about society respecting transparency over an individual respecting it. Because as an individual, like, yeah, I don't know everything either. But if you up there and you're like, I don't know. Now they like, see, he's supposed to be leading us and he don't even know where he stands on this issue.
Man, that is so.
And I think that is really the hardest, because as a leader, you're like, all right, should I fake the funk? And even as a young black man, I grow up in a space where you have to do it, because any slight sense of incompetency, oh, you're exactly who I thought you were. I'm gonna take. So you grow up. You got to be more than who you actually are, or you're never going to get a shot. So if I'm walking in somewhere, I don't have any experience, my resume, but I'm walking in, oh, yeah, I'm the man. I've been doing this for years. Utmost confidence, ultra lack of experience, because I'm not going to get in the door any other way. Because if I walk in there and tell them, hey, I'm a hard worker, I haven't had a chance, they're going to be like, no, we'll pass. So I think we grow up being groomed to do that. So how do we start to combat that? Because like I said, society really doesn't let us.
Having people in your corner. I mean, that's all I can say. When it comes to a ministry, if someone's trying to be transparent, but it causes them to fall or be taken less serious, I feel like having people in your corner or having a group of individuals who can help you is always going to, I think it's always going to work.
So more advocates that can push your same message. If I got up here and I said something really transparent, everybody's like, hey, and then now you can attest to the fact, hey, Darian does X, Y, and Z, and I'm telling y'all he's a good dude. And I think that can help.
Or if they don't know something, they have a group of people who they can talk to. What do you call that? It's like not a committee, but a
Advisors.
It's like a board. Is it a board? How do we treat it at a church?
We do have an elders council.
I'll be honest with you. I think we're talking about a culture. You want a culture where people can be transparent. Now, let's be clear. Every time you're transparent doesn't mean something went wrong in your life. It just means that you're open to people being able to see your life. You're an open book. You're saying, hey, somebody just gave me $1 million the other day.
Ooh,
That's transparent. I don't have to tell y'all that.
I'm not telling y'all that.
I probably ain't telling y'all that. I ain't there yet, so don't look at me to tell y'all if I got $1 million. But I'm just saying, transparent doesn't necessarily mean something went wrong and I'm telling you about it. Transparent just means that I'm willing to share and be open with what's going on in my life. Just like people aren't. This is the truth, though. To your point, we want our leaders to be transparent, but we're not.
Yep, that's it.
We're not, right? Now, this is what's different. Gen Y is. Here's why. Gen Y grew up on social media. Everything y'all do is on social media. I literally, me and my sister, like, I'm like, girl, if you don't take that down, yes. I'm like, take that down. What are you doing? You know, but for her, that's just how she's grown up. So she expects what she's putting out. So y'all's expectation of transparency is totally different from mine.
Okay.
So do we think that there is a such thing as oversharing or too transparent, whether it's from the leader side or just from the everyday Joe?
I think so.
Like, if you're a leader, don't tell us you just hit your wife. I don't think that's something you should say.
That's not even funny, but
I
I
know it's
don't know
not
why I'm
funny.
laughing, but
I'm thinking of
it was just an
that was
extreme.
so
I'm thinking of
extreme.
something.
Yeah, I'm
extreme
sorry. I'm
family
not
goes
laughing
that
at
far.
the, yeah.
Like, don't tell us that. You got to deal with that with God, first of all, and on your own, because that's violence. You know what I'm saying?
That is violence, but do you think that there's not somebody sitting out there, forget, not even the woman, but a man's trying to deal with the fact that he's done that before and can't, and feels as though he shouldn't even be in the building? And so is that the point where because you're saying, hey, I've done this, not to say this is what I'm currently doing,
Right,
look at it,
right.
not to
That's
glorify
that's
it,
where I was
not to
gonna go.
glorify it,
Yeah.
but to show, like he said,
I can be delivered, I can grow, mature. Yeah, that's where I was gonna go. So if that is, whether it's that or something else that we shouldn't be doing, whatever the situation is, I think that you can share. You might not share it in that moment, but it might become a time where a prime example could be Pastor Sarah Jakes Roberts. She was pregnant at 13, I think she says, and she shares that. Now, I don't remember when it happened. I mean, we're young, so I don't know if in that moment they were oversharing, because I don't know what that was. But today, she's able to help single moms or women who may find themselves in a similar situation and say, this is how it felt for me when I was a 13-year-old soon-to-be mom. And this is how, it affected my life. It, may or may not have caused, depression or anxiety or whatever it may have been. But these are the steps that I took to get my life back on track to where I am now. So I think that's when it becomes something that now you can be transparent if that's what you choose. You can be vulnerable because you're now able to go from point A and give me some steps to get to point B.
And I also, this might go into another topic, but I don't want it to. But as far as being transparent, you got to be spirit-led with it too, because it might not be the right time to say a certain thing.
No, oversharing. I think oversharing only occurs when there's a disconnect between what happened and what your intention is. So if I'm explaining something, do I need to tell you what street that this person I met on? That's oversharing. Why am I saying this? And get to that. And I think that will help guide people along being transparent and then oversharing.
Yeah, because now I'm thinking about that, you don't want people to go that route. And I think oversharing can force them to go, oh, well, let me dabble in this. Just
Back
to
when
see.
I used to be out there, and I would be down at the trap house on 38th and so-and-so, and I mean, they had some of the best,
Chicken.
Right. I totally get it. Right.
Chicken.
Yeah,
the best chicken.
Right,
Right, go over there.
Right. And then I get what you're saying. And I think the other thing for me in this is just, now this is between the relevancy and transparency piece, is understanding from a generational standpoint that TikTok videos are how long?
I couldn't tell you. I don't know how to use.
Some of them a little bit longer.
But
yes,
most
it's
of them
all
are
short form.
pretty, like a minute or less. Instagram, 60 seconds or less. Everything now is in bite sizes and clips. We're no longer in a generation where you can stand up in a pulpit for 2 hours and preach. We're no longer in a time period where, you can come to classes for 8 weeks to find out the same thing you could have found out in one day. We're in a different time period now. And I think to make things relevant and transparent at the same time is the challenge of today's ministry, especially with Y and Z. X, we all right. We all right.
Sure.
We grew up in the more traditional sense of what baby boomers wanted us to have, and we kind of just acclimated to that. And we left church, but when we came back looking for what we left. Whereas now, people leave and they go and they're exposed to all this stuff online, and they start expecting what they've seen somewhere else, and they're looking for what they can't find locally. I think it's different. I didn't have all the internet access as a child and a teenager that people have today. So that's what makes X a little bit different. And now you Google exactly what you want and go find it.
I feel like Generation X invented social media.
I thought that was us.
And the internet.
No, they did. No,
that
that was MySpace
Generation
and
X.
College Club and
They invented this stuff.
College Club.
Mm-hmm.
Black Planet.
Black Planet.
They invented
Okay.
social media.
Touche.
Absolutely.
Like literally,
Touche.
they invented social media. So I think Generation X is super effective, especially when they do research and learn even more.
Hey, thank you, Sam. I'll take that.
Man, y'all are hyping them up crazy.
Hey, listen, man.
Because I think y'all want the same things that we want, but are afraid to say it.
No. We definitely do, and we start think about it. Kirk, Ty, all of the things that came out of X that really opened the door for what Y and Z are asking for today started in X, man. So we started it, but we just weren't as bold as y'all are. But y'all disrespectful.
Can
Y'all
be.
disrespectful with it. I don't mean that in a... Okay, I'm sorry. Let me say that for everyone. I don't mean disrespectful in the negative connotation as much as y'all just be like, you know what? This is what we want, and we going to go after it. And y'all don't care who you offend in order to state your opinion.
I mean, we do care, but I don't think we're thinking about it.
Nah,
who we're going to.
Well, there's no care if there's no thought, okay? I'm just going to... Just saying.
I'm sorry if I offended anybody ever. I didn't mean to do it. I just wasn't thinking I would hurt you.
You didn't mean it.
But yeah, so we're gonna move on into Dr. Kimberly's portion. She's back. She wasn't here last week, but she's back and she's gonna do a little something.
All right, so I think you guys enjoyed our first episode, I think first or second episode, where we played this or that. And so this time I've only got 6. And it's all for Pastor John. It's all for Pastor John. You've only got like 2 seconds to pick one. Okay. And we might ask you to elaborate.
Okay.
All right, so I'm going to start you off a little easy because the first one I feel like we've already kind of touched on.
Okay.
Traditional or contemporary church?
Contemporary.
Okay. Are you attending online or in person? Your preference?
Right now, in this season?
Your preference.
Oh, my preference overall?
Yeah.
Ooh. In person.
In person. What's your reasoning?
I think just I like the atmosphere of in person just because I like to feel the music. So even if I'm at home, when allowed by my wife, I like to cut on the sound system and stuff because I need it. I need subwoofers.
Yeah.
I need everything. You know?
I
So
get it. It's more in your face.
Yep.
Got it. All right. Would you prefer a weekday church service or a weekend service?
Weekend.
Okay. Group Bible studies or your individual personal Bible study time?
Individual.
Why?
Because everybody wants to piggyback off of what the last person said. I just want to piggyback on that. Can I piggyback on that? I'm trying to get to verse 18. We still on verse number 2. And that's the good verse down there. Stop piggybacking. It's too heavy.
Have your own thoughts.
Exactly.
If you were Gen Y, you would just tell them that's enough. We're moving on.
Let's move on. 2 more. Only 2 more. The Bible app or physical Bible?
Man, I'm not paper Bible saved. I like the Bible
Let's
apps.
go. That's what I'm talking about.
Oh my gosh. I know this is a no judgment zone, but I am judging.
I have a lot of study Bibles, but I prefer Bible apps.
All right, last one. You ready?
I am.
Are you sure?
I think I am.
Because this one's tough.
Okay.
John P. Key or Kirk Franklin?
Ooh. Wow.
You only got 2 seconds.
Wait, which era? But there's a lot of John P. Key.
No, John P. Key or Kirk Franklin.
Boy. Well, I'm going to have to go with Kirk.
Can you give us a little of your favorite song?
I want to know why.
The title.
I want to know why, though.
You really
Would you say John P. Key?
No, I wouldn't. I just want to. I just want to know why.
I think for me, Kirk was he was willing to step out and be revolutionary in his sound.
Do you want a revolution?
And I think John P. Key is a legend.
Yeah.
But I think Kirk changed the generation sound. He was like how Andre Crouch was a generation prior. He changed the sound of gospel music.
That's good.
That is good. Would y'all change, or any of y'all's answers differ?
I'm picking Kirk just because he's a great writer.
I mean, listen.
He's just a great writer.
His songs can take me.
Like, come on.
Rain.
Straight off his writing, I'm picking him.
Dude, let me wait. Quick story on Kirk. And is that I literally was at Fort Drum, New York. I was at a club called Penance. And in the club, literally, I was like, I'm going to church. They play Stomp.
Oh, my goodness.
But that's the thing.
And that's what made him so...
But that's universal.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you can say that. Or just like you can say, do you want a revolution? And
playing that in the club too.
Everybody.
Yeah. I'm just saying, so that's why it had to be Kirk. Like,
Shout out to Kirk. Shout out to Kirk.
Shout out to Kirk Franklin.
If you ever see this clip, Kirk, we'd love to have you join us.
Yeah,
because Sundays ain't enough, so if you need to be here Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, we can make it work.
Absolutely.
So that's all we have for y'all today. We hope you've enjoyed today's episode. We hope something that we said has been inspiring. And my final thought for today is, as you're shaping a ministry, as you live life, period, be as authentically you as you can, and who's supposed to be with you will come.
I think my final thought is to surround yourself with people who are better than you, who you think are better than you.
Be the authenticity that you want to see. I thought that was really good that y'all brought up today.
Yeah, I guess the thought I would leave you with, if everyone in church was like you, what kind of church would you be a part of? And if that's the question, then ask yourself that when it pertains to people that are younger than you and older than you, because that's how we can bridge generational gaps.
Peace, love, and hair grease.
Hey.
I feel like Generation X would say that. Peace, love, and hair grease.